Hello, my fellow page pamper. My name is Cora. Welcome to my channel, Pampered Pages, and welcome to a Pampered Pages original, the first chapter of the year book tag. 2026 is in full swing, and in this tag, I've got 10 questions to ignite your reading year in these initial months. So, without further ado, let's light a candle and ignite some bookish magic. First page. What's the first book you've read this year or plan on reading? Keeping it real, keeping it 100, I found myself in a wee little bit of a reading slump at the beginning of this month, and one night while I was laying in bed, perusing Libby and Hoopla, I thought to myself,
why don't I give Frida McFadden a bit of a chance?
I've heard that her books can potentially be gripping and quick reads, and that, my fellow page pamper, is how I finished the book, The Locked Door, as my first read of 2026. And let me just tell you, that title was, for me personally, the perfect jumpstart back into my reading groove. The Locked Door follows main character Nora Davis, a successful surgeon who lives a bit of a quiet and mysterious life. The thing is, nobody knows that Nora's father was a notorious serial killer who is currently serving 18 consecutive life sentences behind bars. One day, Nora discovers that one of her patients was brutally murdered in the exact same manner her father used to unalive his victims.
What?
Now, Nora's not a killer, and she most definitely is not like her father. Nora helps people. Certainly, the cops don't have anything to pin this on her. Well, as long as they don't look in her basement.
What?
My brain was on high alert with this title, and upon finishing it, found myself on quite the mystery thriller reading spree, which leads me to question number 2. Current chapter. What are you reading right now? Currently, I am 83% through reading The Mad Wife by Megan Church. I have had my eyeballs on this book for quite some time, and when I saw that it was available as an ebook on Hoopla, I immediately tapped download. In this story, readers follow Lulu Mayfield. Equipped with her own life experiences and tragic memories, Lulu has spent the last several years trying her very best to be the perfect 1950s housewife. However, after the birth of her second child, Lulu's life begins to shift. Enters her new neighbor Bitsy, who, per Lulu's intrigue, seems a bit mysterious. And the more Lulu unearths and discovers about Bitsy, the more the cracks in her own life seem to widen. Weaving a domestic drama with psychological suspense and historical elements, The Mad Wife is a title that has fully immersed me, sometimes until my eyeballs cannot physically stay open. TBR TREASURE. What's sitting at the very top of your physical TBR? From my personal library, the title that sits at the very top of my TBR is The Ministry of Time by Colleen Bradley. I picked this book up last year, and I would absolutely love to read it soon. I'm hoping within this first quarter of 2026. As a TBR hopeful for me last year, The Ministry of Time boasts a plethora of marketed elements that sound right up my reading alley. Time travel, romance, comedy, and some spy thriller vibes. My brain has already conjured up some pretty high expectations for this one that I can only hope my reading experience will live up to. So, per usual, TBD. Author debut to you. Are there any new to you authors on your 2026 reading radar? While I fully intend for this number to grow, two that come to mind are Kate Quinn and Matt Dinniman. The Astral Library is, I believe, the first book scheduled for publication from my top 10 most anticipated reads, and The Alice Network was my final book purchase of 2025. Matt Dinniman, on the other hand, recently entered my reading radar chat with his Dungeon Crawler Carl series, and all I have to say is stick around because I may have, keyword may, have some pampered plans planned for that reading experience. Reread vibes. Are there any books you'd like to revisit this year? Tentatively, I think I'd like to go back and reread One Day by David Nichols. The last time, and only time, I have read this book was back in 2011, 2012, maybe even earlier. I have since donated my copy, but recently I was reminded of it and fortunately found the ebook, I believe, through Libby. I do have it tagged, but I'm thinking perhaps I would like to revisit it, maybe also within the first quarter of this year. TBD, of course, but if I do recall, I'm pretty sure that book has a really sad ending. Series starter. Are you planning to begin any firsts in a series? Piggybacking off my answer to question 4 and Matt Dinniman's Dungeon Crawler Carl series, The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen is another series starter I am looking forward to starting this year. Fingers crossed, of course. But the first book, The Bridge Kingdom, is one that has been sitting on my physical TBR for quite some time, and spread across these two series, there are plenty of books, plenty of pages, and I'm hoping to enjoy both so that I can continue them. So, here's to some optimism. Anticipated joy. What upcoming release do you feel will bring 6-star energy? Going off my top 10 most anticipated releases, I have a very strong inkling that The Knave and the Moon by Rachel Gillig is going to hit hard. I'm talking full impact, head-on, 6-star read collision. Now, I'm feeling pretty good about a lot of my potential reading hopefuls this year, but something about Rachel Gillig's writing has just always delivered the atmospheric vibes I pine after, and of course, there's going to be Bartholomew. Mood board. What reading format are you gravitating toward right now? Lately, and by lately I mean within this first month of 2026, I have found myself mostly gravitating toward ebooks and physical copies, but especially at bedtime, I've really been drawn to the ebook format. And between my Libby and Hoopla apps, I have a decent array of reading options, I must say. Reading goal. How many books would you like to read this year? No pressure, of course. If you watched my bookish goals for 2026, I mentioned that I would love to read 30 books this year, and currently, at this moment in time, I am 13% of the way towards reaching my goal. I'll be even closer if I finish The Mad Wife today. A Pampered Pages pick. Is there a title reserved for an ultimate pamper moment? A title from my personal library that feels like it will perfectly capture the vibes for an ultimate pamper moment is The Paris Novel by Ruth Reichel. Set in 1980s Paris, this story follows Stella, who, after her mother's passing, finds herself with a one-way plane ticket and a note that reads, "Go to Paris." A bit hesitant at first, Stella ends up deciding to go, but once there, she finds herself slipping into some old patterns. That is, until she stumbles across a vintage store where she purchases a Dior dress that sets her off on the adventure of a lifetime. IYKYK, you can most definitely consider me sat at the mere mention of Paris in a book. The blurb also promises a feast for the senses, and as I mentioned when I hauled this title, every single one of my senses is ready to devour this story. Pain au chocolat in hand. There you have it. Those are my answers to the first chapter of the year book tag. And now I'd love to know yours. If you decide to partake in this original tag, please credit and tag me at Pampered Pages so I can see and hear your answers. And just a heads up, later this year, much later, I am planning on doing a last chapter of the year book tag, so stay tuned for that. As always, thank you so much for watching. Per usual, I hope you have a beautiful day, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you soonish. Bye!